Hello, this is another episode of On The Point. This time I'm with numlocked. He's the champion of I-49. He's been playing with Epsilon before that Infused. One of the best demomen, and I'm sure he would say the best demoman ever to grace the game. And I'm going to be talking to him about a range of topics in his history in the scene. How are you doing, Seb?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good.
Very good. I know you've got a tournament to go to tonight. You're busy. You're an eSports man, so I'll try not to take up too much of your time. If you have a limited amount of time yourself watching, you can click in the description box below and there's a link to all of the questions and it'll send you straight to any that take your fancy. But for all the keen people, we're going to start off right at the beginning with an overview of who Seb numlocked Barton is. And, I'd say one of the best demomen ever to play the game, one of the class of UK demomen to come out of the school of byte. And progress. You graduated from the School of Byte and you're doing pretty well for yourself. And then went on to, obviously had fantastic success in TF2, went on to play League of Legends as well and played that professionally. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. Although you weren't quite the world champion of League of Legends though, so
No, fortunately not.
Nice try there. And now aiming to be the champions of Overwatch as well, tackling that with his team G2, which is very similar to the Epsilon team that he enjoyed so much success with in TF2. So the first question that I want to get into, because I know that you did an interview recently actually, which I was delighted to see because it gives me a bit of a context as well. You did an interview recently and you said the first competitive games you got into were kind of the CS series. You started with them and then you got into them. But what I want to know is, I want to know a little bit before that, kind of why did you approach video games competitively in the first place? Who got you into thinking about them as kind of a competitive zone where you could play kind of team versus team or player versus player? Why weren't you in for the casual fun?
I don't know really. Like the first game I ever really tried on the computer was a game called Digital Paintball 2, and that was immediately like teams versus teams, and I just enjoyed winning on that. So then obviously I'd go from one game to another, like Wolfenstein Enemy Territory, that'd be mostly playing publics and again trying to win, enjoying the competition there, and then going on seeing things like Counter-Strike come up on Xfire as like one of the most popular games at the time. I then searched for things like Enemy Down. That was like the first league I saw. Just kind of grew from there, really.
What kind of age are you where you've started getting this passion for competitive gaming?
I think like 13, 14 maybe.
Alright, so you started out young.
Yeah, I think so.
And what made you competitive? Are you competitive in sports, other things, or is it only in gaming where you really found your passion, your niche for becoming the best?
I think I was always competitive before that, but I never really tried as hard as I did in gaming. Like in motocross or in football or whatever, like I happened to play at the time. I'd always like enjoy competing, but I'd never try. I wouldn't care that much if I won or lost. Whereas in gaming, I cared a lot more about winning.
And you started out playing in some teams for CS. Were you taking it seriously?
Uh, at first, no. Like I was just a stupid kid, and I'd even tried things like hacks and stuff at a really young age.
See, now we see where boomeh got it from.
I was bad influence. Yeah, no. But yeah, like as a kid, I didn't really care too much, and I just played for the fun of competing. It wasn't really until I started playing Counter-Strike Source that I really started to care about how the competition went and like going to events and competing there.
And then you learnt about TF2 through the Weapons of the Rebellion organization, which, in my opinion, is one of the strangest ways to kind of learn about TF2, because it's not known as a competitive game, and for someone to come in and their first experience of it be kind of watching demos of this team and stuff. Did you have any knowledge of kind of the pub side of it? Did you play TF2 casually or at all before that?
I had never heard of TF2 at all until I joined the Weapons of Rebellion organization and saw they had a TF2 team. And then eventually, after like our team kind of disbanded, the CS Source team, I ended up watching one of the tournaments they were playing in. And I remember watching Coins and Evil, specifically, I think it was at the time, just playing a soldier and getting air shots and stuff, and it just looked really cool. And I thought that looks like a really fun game. I want to try that out. So originally it was actually Soldier that I thought looked fun in the game.
So did you get into Soldier? Was that the first one that you picked up and you thought, I want to be airshot and everything?
I tried it with some of my CS friends. I tried playing Soldier in some mixes and stuff that we got from IRC. And I did enjoy that. I did enjoy Soldier. But then looking through, when I ended up watching some more games of Weapons of the Rebellion and getting really into watching TF2 and trying to become good at it, demo just looked like a really important class and something that looked like the biggest challenge, and that's what I wanted at the time.
And did you start off just watching completely? Was that the way that you approached the game? Just watch it, watch as much input as you could possibly get, or as after seeing the first few, did you try out the game for yourself, play in some mixes, and start getting into it in that way?
It was mostly a healthy mixture of both. Like you said earlier, the majority of demos I watched were from Byte. Like I talked a lot with Byte, and I watched a lot of his demos. I think actually his Steam profile that says "Don't teach" something about teaching a dog tricks is actually in reference to me. I can't remember the quote exactly off the top of my head.
Oh, I gotta find it now.
Yeah, it's in reference to me. Because obviously he taught me everything I knew, and then eventually I became like, I don't want to say better, but
I see. The student surpassed the master.
Exactly, that sort of thing, yeah.
The quote is roughly, "Don't teach your dog too many tricks, otherwise the dog will end up walking you," or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I don't think that's actually ever happened with a dog. I think that's a completely stupid analogy to make, but I understand the sentiment. Yeah, I get the sentiment, definitely.
Yeah.
So, did the public side of TF2, the non-competitive side of it, ever interest you?
No, I fucking hated it. It's such a stupid game for public. Like, it's so spammy and chaotic and everything. I've never really enjoyed public games. Like, originally I started out playing public games because I didn't know any better. Like, I just got into PC gaming, and that was the most accessible thing to me, was just playing competitive publics.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that's where most people got into it.
Exactly.
As well,
as I understood the scene more, each scene of each game more, and got into a bit more seriously, I realized that that's not where I wanted to be at all. I didn't want to kind of waste time on pub, really.
So, were you the kind of player playing competitive that that had a lot of stuff within the game that you didn't really understand outside your sphere of influence? Are you the kind of person who gets bamboozled by new unlocks coming in, or pyro and engineer being played? You're looking at these classes like, why? I didn't know these were in the game.
Not necessarily classes. Like during mixes and stuff, I'd always make an effort to play other classes as well, so I could understand them. Because I think that's key to becoming a good player, is understanding what each class is capable of doing and knowing your limits on each class, so that you can punish or play against each of those correctly. I'd also spend a lot of time as each class, specifically Demoman, like on just a DM server with a couple of friends. A guy called Nos, actually, from Four Kings, who the old school TF2 players will remember. He was a really good friend of mine. Him and a guy called Mega. I'd sit on TF2 servers with just them two. I'd go Demoman on like Granary middle or Badlands middle or whatever, and they'd just play Scout and Soldier and just jump at me and run at me and stuff. And I'd play pipes only, just to practice and get myself out of sticky situations and stuff.
Sticky situations. Is this in the days before MG and Deathmatch then?
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Just had to join
before
your own
MG
server.
was a thing, yeah.
Before Mike came to prominence with his training mod.
Carried me, yeah.
Yeah. So, why you said that you were attracted to Demoman because it was such this powerful class and you thought you wanted the challenge. Was it the mechanics of it, how it fit into the team? What did you think was challenging or gave it this ability to control the pace of the game?
I think just the fact that it had the highest DPS of all the classes, and the fact that without a Demoman you can't really push. You're kind of relying on your Demoman to set up or deny pushes. So it just felt really important because of that.
Do you feel like that plays into how you view yourself as a player? Did you think, I can get to a position where I am going to be godly with this carry kind of class? Do you feel yourself in other in other video games that you play or in other scenarios going for the most key player and trying to perfect it?
I think from an early age up until now, I've always wanted to be the more important and more carry kind of player on the team. But I think that's just that's always been kind of an egoist, younger view I've had of games I've played. Whereas now, like, I'm much more content just, like, for example, in my Overwatch team, I play tank. Like, I'm much more content just sitting back and not taking the spotlight sort of thing. I want to do well, but I don't need that spotlight to do well.
So, if you were to play kind of the games that you already have got into, kind of TF2 and League of Legends, let's say, if you were to get into those games for the first time now, would you still be going for these power roles within your team, or would you be content just to take a more passive role and try and build up the players around you?
Honestly, I think in TF2 I'd enjoy playing medic instead, and which is ironic because anyone that's ever played a game of TF2 and the team who played medic is they don't want to
Nobody wants to play medic with you.
But and yeah, with League as well, I think it'd be support rather than like playing a top lane kind of carry champion role sort of thing.
Why is that? Why do you think that's changed?
I just think
is it just
I've matured more as a person, and I've kind of let that sort of side of me go. Whereas when I started TF2 and I was like, and as I played through it, I was going through the ages 17, 18 sort of thing, and yeah, I think it's just an age thing and a growing up thing. I think a lot of people do experience that.
Have you had experience of that with other people that you've played with that you think
yes,
know them maturing throughout the game?
Yeah. Mike, for example, I've seen him go from this horrible, egotistic rager, and he's a really nice guy now. But I've always gotten with Mike regardless of the attitude thing, because I've known that, like, I kind of saw some of myself in Mike in that regard, the ego thing, because he was amazing and he knew he was amazing, so that kind of hindered him in that aspect.
Do you think that's a recurring issue in video games because of the younger player pool compared to things like, sports? They're perhaps slightly younger when they're starting to pick up video games and at a kind of more teenage part of their life.
I think in video games especially because it's a lot easier to see if you're like, it's a lot easier to kind of see how good you are in comparison to others. Whereas in something like football, like you might be good within your pool of friends, but I mean that might be all you see and at all ever. Like you might never go on to compare yourself to people from other parts of the world or whatever. Whereas obviously in gaming you've got quick and easy access to a game against anyone from anywhere, and the more regularly you play, the more people you'll see and the more people you'll compare yourself to, and it kind of get out of hand.
I know that Riot as a company, they love to clamp down on toxicity and stuff way more than other organizations or other developers of games. Have your experiences with them kind of provoked any of this thought process, or how do you see the comparisons between the two communities? Has it made any difference in your opinion?
No, it's probably made it worse, to be honest, with Riot, because you just get more annoyed that they're like, the amount of times I've been chat banned by Riot is ridiculous. I've had like 2-week bans just because of pure rage from the game. But that's like, I think that's just the thing. It's just that game that causes the rage issues. The game itself and Riot forcing those sort of clamps on the way you can chat to people in the game. Because I mean, I think taunting and just shit talking is just part of gaming in general. Like it's part of every game. Doesn't matter which game you go to, it's going to be there. So the fact that they try and shut it out of their game makes it far more prominent and then far more aggressive, I think, because people are annoyed that they can't be like that.
That's pretty interesting. A nice, interesting tangent there that I wasn't expecting us to go down, but some thoughtful insights. So, bringing it back to TF2, in the beginning of your experiences, you had your rise to the top, or quite near the top, at least, with Vale, this team that really has some interesting collection of players. What do you remember of your experiences with that team? Because it was your first real foray into the top of the scene.
Yeah, I mean, it was exhausting. Like we played so the normal TF2 scrimming hours were like 2 hours a night, I think, and then 4-5 days a week for most teams. We played, I think, 4 hours a night, 6 or 7 days a week. Like it was horrible. Like I loved the guys in the team, and like we all really got on because we were all obviously socially reclusive and played TF2 all the time. But yeah, like it was tough. But I mean, the work we put in paid off in the end because, as you said, we did rise very near to the top of the game. Yeah.
Why do you think you put in so much effort in that team? Was that driven by you? Who was the driving force behind, we must practice this much, we're getting to the top? Who had the motivation and the passion?
I think everyone kind of had it, otherwise it'd been silly to stick around for as long as we all did. But Skinny was like the main driving force behind he was the reasoning behind putting that much time into scrimming every night. Like he's a really, I don't know, because he came from a pub background as well. Like he was just a public player that got picked up and went on to big things. So he wanted to, make a name for himself and prove himself worthy, not just some pub player.
And were all of the players in that team really keen for getting to the top? They had the motivation. Skinny?
Some maybe more keen than others. If you think about what Josh did to get to the top.
Well, absolutely, yeah. That's what I was going to ask you as well. This was the start of the love story with Josh with boomeh as well.
Yeah.
How did you guys get along in that team?
I got on really well with him. Like Josh, in my circle of friends that I have currently,
He's a nice
Josh,
guy, isn't he?
he's a very nice guy. Yeah. He's like I've known him the longest of all of them, and I get on really well with him. Um, I never had a problem with him in Vale. Even when I found out I had a problem, even when I found out he cheated, like obviously I was really disappointed because I feel like that kind of damaged what the team had achieved, knowing that we played with someone that cheated. Because I've no idea, like even now I've no idea how long he cheated for, when he cheated, what he used, etc. He's still a really good friend. I love him to bits, but obviously knowing that back then I was disappointed because I did feel like it affected what we'd achieved.
Do you feel like when you look back on that team and the achievements, like they weren't genuine, or you had put in all that hard work for nothing, or do you feel like the cheating must have played such a minor role that you did actually still achieve something anyway?
No, I definitely feel like it didn't mean as much anymore, which is why I still wanted to continue and try as much and as hard as I did with TF2 because I feel like I still had something to prove. Because that was my goal when I first started out. Like I wanted to become this big name, like the names that I'd seen when I first started watching TF2. Like I wanted to become, like people to see that and think, wow, I wish I could play like that sort of thing. And then, yeah, that's just why I kept playing and tried even harder than I had done with Vale.
So by the time you were in TCM with, it was basically almost a whole new roster by that time. Although was it only Skinny that was the same actually?
I think with TCM it was we had Springer Medic until work got too much for him. Then we had Byte Medic.
Mhm.
It was Haunter and Coins Soldier.
Yeah.
And Skinny and I think it was Xerox.
Yes.
Scout.
Yeah.
Xerox
Skinny and Xerox. Yeah. So it was only you and Skinny from the Vale team that had started back then.
Well, no, because we were originally Vale was originally Springer, Remu, Haunter.
Oh right, yes, of course. Haunter was in the team the whole time as well, wasn't
and Skinny. But then we had a little bit of. Oh, boomeh was there as well. I think we didn't get Haunter. I can't remember. We didn't get.
I think he started with boomeh and.
Yeah, we started with boomeh and Remu, I think, because Remu was running heavy 24/7, even on like Badlands and stuff. That was horrible. Or Granary, like we'd show up to mid, like this is where I got my slow rollout thing from, because we'd have to go to middle slowly with a heavy, like wait for the heavy to get into middle. He'd walk up top and then drop down. But yeah, no, like so that was our roster with Vale. But then we went on to I think Yo-Yo Tech before TCM, and that was kind of a similar roster. But that's when the cheating thing happened, and we moved to TCM without boomeh, and that's when we got Byte and lost Skin. But yeah, our roster with TCM. I mean, we were good. I think there was a time at one point where we actually won everything online. But there was always this problem at LAN where Haunter would never show up. Be it like he's been in a car crash or it's work or something. There was always an excuse.
Was it excuses?
I don't know. Part of me thinks
this wishy-washy stuff. So
part of me, I don't know. I know as much as what the public was told at that time. Part of me believes it was excuses and that he didn't want to go to LAN. But I just had to accept it at the time, and that always left us with a subpar roster at the LANs, like because we'd have Springer on Medic who didn't really play anymore, and then we'd have Byte on Soldier who didn't play Soldier, and the other problem was that Haunter was our main caller. So it kind of left us up creep with that paddle sort of thing.
What kind of calling role did Byte and you have in that team? It's interesting to say you know Haunter filled in the main calls for that. Was that before you and Byte really got into your full, maybe even slightly micro style of main calling?
Yeah, like when Haunter was in the team, I was still fairly young, so and I was nowhere near experienced as the rest of them, so I didn't really have any of the respect of the players in that regard for calling. So I even like calling damage stuff, I kind of kept quiet for that, and it was all really Haunter and a little bit Byte. It wasn't until we lost Haunter. And I can't remember what the roster was when we lost Haunter. I don't know if you know.
On TCM.
Yeah. Coins was still on the roster for a while, but I can't remember who the other soldier was.
No, unfortunately not.
Yeah, okay, no, I don't remember. But yeah, when that happened, it was almost all Byte with his micromanagement style of calling, and I kind of just listened and learned. And then when I went on to my next team, I'd picked up so much of that I kind of implemented myself. And looking back, I'm not really sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because it's a really controlling style of calling. Like, it doesn't really give any freedom for any of the players.
What was the team atmosphere like playing with you alongside Byte in that kind of mentorship role, or the real stringent calling role? Did everyone just obey the master?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, you didn't really have a choice. It was that or don't play. But there, Byte is a smart player. Byte knew what he was doing, and there wasn't really ever that many issues with what we were, told to do. Everyone had a lot of respect for Byte.
Do you think once you had started your own calling style, and started, like you were saying before, maybe developing the ego and the feel like you had a grasp on the game, would that have then been some tension within the team if you'd gone back to play with somebody like Byte with his similar calling style?
Maybe, but like I still now I have a lot of respect for Byte, so I'm not sure. Like, it's a lot harder to be a prick when you have a lot of respect for the person that you're being a prick to, So it wasn't like I don't think my attitude problems were ever. They were at the worst, I think, in either a full UK team or at the very start of my career, which was with, I think, Cool Clan. I got kicked from that team. That was my very first team, and I got kicked from them for attitude problems.
Admirable the Snake.
Yep.
Yeah, he was playing with Cool Clan back then, wasn't
it was.
he? Yeah,
wltrs was in the team.
Yeah.
Preds was in the team. Admirable was in the team. Pizza was in the team. Cube was in the team.
A real
Cube that actually wanted to kick me.
Never forgiven?
No, I'm past it. I was really annoyed for like a year or two afterwards. But
a year or two?
Yeah,
I was hold annoyed, a grudge.
Like, yeah, I was so happy when I ended up in Vale, looking back and seeing Cube, still down there.
Not that you were bitter at all. No. So after this, there's a team that you are incredibly well known for playing in, I think, which is Team Infused. You spent a long time playing there. You formed the bond with Mike as well, which you then take into Epsilon, of course, and now G2. How did Team Infused form? What was the situation around you grabbing these mostly UK players, along with, I think it was Kuhn at the beginning, and forming this team to try and contest Prem?
I think it was just a case of me and some friends wanting to make a team together. Like, because at the time, Greg and boomeh, who had, I think he'd just come back from being banned, and we were all pretty good together. And we just wanted to have fun and play the game. We felt like we'd have the most fun doing that in a full UK team. So we just went about trying to find UK players. I think we ended up with me, Greg, boomeh,
Flushy.
I think it was Flisco, I think was the other soldier. And then Flushy, like, we were struggling to find a medic, and we trialed Flushy, and after one game we took him instantly. Like, he was really impressive in his trial. I think the reason we took him was because he scored 100 points as medic, and that was the most I'd ever seen a medic score in my time of playing TF2. So
I heard this story. I heard that Flushy scored 120 points or something on Granary as medic, and so you were like, yeah, get this guy. Are those the kind of decisions that you live to regret, or was Flushy a good pickup in the end?
I love Flushy. Like, he was so much fun to play with. Like, that team is probably the most fun I ever had on the team. All the iterations of that roster, I think, was the most fun I've ever had on the team. Just in terms of the player personalities and stuff. Because, well, one, everyone was English, so I think that does make it a lot easier for everyone's kind of humour to tie in and get on with the story easier. There's no boundaries, but I enjoyed that roster a lot.
Were you not able to find the second UK scout? Was Greg, forever put next to somebody to show him up from a foreign country?
I don't know about showing up. We'll come to that, I'm sure, about in the what was it, I-30? One of the I series where we played against Epsilon in the final.
That was. Do you mean where Kuhn played horrifically?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was online. That wasn't.
No. It was I-36. I remember it really well, because it was on Badlands, and he came up to me after the map and goes, "Seb, I'm so sorry, I got 3 frags." I still mock him for that.
At I-46, yeah.
Was it I-46?
I think I-46 was the one where the Americans were up.
Oh, I-43 then. I-43.
I-43 in the finals.
Yeah.
Right.
That's it.
Okay. Yeah.
Grand
Yeah.
finals, yeah. Because
Yeah.
that was
When
my favorite.
of course when Quad was playing for Epsilon as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Okay. I'm on
That's
the
one of
same
my
page with you now.
favorite lands, yeah. But
So
yeah, I forgot the original question was now.
well, it was the original question was why were you unable to find a second
Oh
UK
yeah, that
scout?
was it. I don't even know. I just think UK players weren't really that prominent at the top of the game at that time, and we still wanted to do well. We didn't want to take a big gamble on someone and not um do well. So we just looked for a top scout at the time, and we ended up with ViQun. And I'm happy we did. I like ViQun. I still get on with him to this day.
What was your response to him coming up to you and grasping you by the arm and saying, "Seb, I'm very sorry. I got 3 frags in the grand final on Badlands."
I think I just pounded my face and couldn't believe it. Like, I don't know. Yeah, it was. I can't remember how the match went. That's just the thing that sticks out the most for me. I can't remember if it was a close match or not. And if it was, that was probably even more upsetting because we would have had it had he killed 3 more people. Like if he doubled his score or whatever.
Mm.
But that's always going to be my favorite land just because of the game versus TCM beforehand. It was like a triple golden cap series. It was insane. It was so intense. And I remember on the 3rd map on Granary. Well, actually, there were 2 standout moments in that series. The first one was, I remember on Badlands Golden Cap, we were on our last. I think it was on Golden Cap, I'm not sure, but it was on Badlands, we were on our last, and they were pushing into us, and we'd killed everybody, and they'd killed everybody except for me and except for Byte. So it was me and Byte on demo, having a little standoff, and there were so many people behind us, like shouting and stuff.
We get flashbacks to things that he taught you, and you were like,
yeah,
just predicting his next move based on these wise words that you remember him whispering.
Peeking around the corner when everyone was shouting, "Don't peek, don't peek." A sticky hit me in the face, bounced off me, and I hid back around the wall. He detted it. I peeked around again, shot a sticky, killed him, and everyone got up cheering. I was on 3 health as well. Everyone got up, started cheering, and I taunted. Like anyone that like has ever watched me in any kind of serious tournament knows that I'll just taunt anyway. Like I love taunting. Like if funny shit happens, I'll taunt because it's hilarious. I think it just adds to it. But yeah, that's one of the standout things. And the other was we were on our Granary last. This is the 3rd map, so if they won this, they were going to the final instead of us. So it's Granary. We were on our last. They were pushing in with Uber. We didn't have Uber, and I had a sticky trap on the boxes on the right. This is old Granary, obviously. And 2 scouts jumped over the boxes at the same time. And I detted, killed both scouts, and immediately their push is lost. And we get momentum all the way from there, all the way back to their last, cap the last. And then it's insane. Like there's a YouTube video of it on Quinn's channel that has all you can hear everything, all the shouting and stuff. And I'd lost my voice at this point in the event. Like I was shouting so much, and you could hear the crowd behind us. It was amazing. Like I'll always remember that because it was such a fun experience having everyone shout that much and be as involved with the team.
Did you get that feeling from any of the future lands that you went to, Future I series? You know, when you're for I-49, for example.
Not really. No, I think that was the most intense I series for me. Obviously, like it was great winning I-49, but I don't feel like people behind us as much because with Infused, I felt like we were more underdogs, so everyone was more excited. And obviously, being a full UK team, we had the support of all the UK people at the event. But with Epsilon, like I think people were just sick of seeing us win. So the fact that TCM were in the final against us, and they'd actually taken a map for us, people were more pumped to see them win than us.
Yeah, the crowd was fairly one-sided.
Yeah,
I think I was rewatching the VOD actually, and after you get the first round on Badlands to begin what was an incredible comeback.
Yeah,
the crowd starts booing, and I was listening to it.
Yeah, I know.
At home, sat here, and I'm like, what is going on? This absolute godly super team is about to start one of the best comebacks ever in the grand final, and people are upset because the underdogs aren't winning. It's,
yeah, I know. It would have been honest if it was an NA team in the final against us instead. It would have been completely different. We'd have full support, but because we weren't the underdogs, like everyone, the British love the underdogs. Like that's just the unfortunate thing when you're on the best team and winning.
Do you think you missed that at I-49? Do you miss the fact that you didn't get that classic EU versus NA show match at the end?
I mean, yes and no. No, in the sense that it's great that we had 2 EU teams in the final instead, and it's like EU's that much better than you that we've got 2 teams in the final, like they did to us in the first international tournament. but I just forgot what the question was.
Do you feel like you missed the Europe versus North America Grand Final? That feeling of representing Europe and smashing
Oh yeah, definitely,
America.
yeah, because we've had the crowd behind us. Yeah, like that's the most exciting thing about Aladdin for me, is having people cheer for you. And obviously we didn't get that in the I-49, despite being probably the best team that TF2 might have ever seen at the time, and maybe even now, I don't know so much. But yeah, definitely.
I've got a question about Team Infused again, just to bring it back to this time, which is around, I think it's around season 10, something like that, just to put it in context for people who are watching. So you've started this team, and you were talking previously about how you felt gutted that boomeh had been cheating and you'd been kind of robbed of this success in your previous team. Why start a new team to play in Premiership with him again?
He was a friend still. Like, obviously, I think it had been quite a while since the whole cheating incident then as well, so I kind of moved on from it. Obviously, I was upset still that it had happened, but I wasn't going to let that ruin my friendship with him and like the rest of my group of friends.
Did you just assume that he wouldn't?
Yeah. Yeah.
And did he?
As far as I know, he didn't know.
Very well. We'll take it.
I mean, there are still jokes made today between my group of friends about him. Like, if he does something good in the game, it's like, oh, gee. So he's never going to live it down.
No, absolutely not. So another question about Team Infused, and when I first started getting into the scene and started really watching matches and getting into it and being super hyped to watch kind of the top teams face each other, was when you were in Team Infused alongside Dunc, Mike, Flisco, Greg, and Cookye, which I believe was season 11, I think.
Mm.
And the battles between you and then Epsilon and then the Jewish and Spanish, I think, Crack Clan just below you, were kind of how I started getting into TF2 and thinking about these heavyweights battling against each other. And now looking back on it, why was Infused doomed to this second place finish all the time, apart from your one moment of glory, when you had this combo of Mike and Seb in the power positions and Cookye on the flank? You would think that with those three probably carry players at any other time in their career, you guys would be able to get fairly consistent upsets against Epsilon, even if you weren't the best team at the time. What was it that stopped Infused being a truly top-level team in the same way that Epsilon were, for example?
I think we were just a lot more chaotic than Epsilon were. Like, Epsilon followed the whole, the Nox style of calling, and that was really the only vocal person they had on their team. I don't thinking back to the rosters. I don't think anyone spoke out as much during games as Nox would. Whereas with us, you've got me, you've got Greg, you've got Dunc. Like, all three of us especially are very vocal players. Mike, chips in too sometimes as well, but us three in particular are incredibly vocal about absolutely everything, like complaining, calling, shouting, like anything. So when if us three clash, and it just makes it a lot harder to play, and for the team to be on the same page as opposed to Epsilon, who only had one page to follow, whereas we had like a whole fucking book.
Did you find that problem with your comms fairly often? Would you be in the game and unable to really tell what was going on, or was it only afterwards when you look back and you now think, after playing in teams with better communication, that's what we should have done?
Bit of both, I think, but like I never really minded it that much because I really enjoyed playing with Infused. Like I said, every iteration of that team was just a lot of fun, and I think coming second with the mess that we were is still an achievement.
Yeah, it was a very strong team. What was the interplay like between you and Crack Clan just below you?
I can't really remember actually. I think we mostly came out on top in those matchups. I can't remember a time where I think there might have been one season where we came third instead. But the majority of the time it was second place.
Did you ever feel like there was a real, a grudge between either you and Epsilon or you and Crack Clan, or were you just playing your own game, or did you were you constantly just trying to outplay Epsilon? Did you have them in your head constantly when you're trying to refine your game, or are you just working on making Infused better?
No, I think for me at least, it was always wanting to beat Epsilon, because we'd always had really close games with them. Like, we'd take maps off them, they'd take maps first, we'd go to Golden Cap all the time. Like, it was never as dominant as the Epsilon that you saw after that. So that I always knew that we could beat them because it was happening. But we just never like fully went over the finish line sort of thing. We kind of just got half across it and took maps and golden caps and stuff.
So, here's another question that I think has been tackled a few times, but mostly in a kind of joking manner, to be honest. But I want to take it slightly more seriously, Sev.
I already know what's going to come.
I'm looking at you giggle. I want to take it seriously. When in the grand final, okay,
Right.
and you've been playing with Greg all season.
Yeah.
I want to take this seriously. So, you've been playing with Greg all season.
Yeah.
He can't play, or you sub Flushy in, Joey C, or for some reason there's that change, and tell me why that change happened as well. But the key question is, did it actually make all the difference? As nice as Greg is, was it honestly like lifting an anchor from the team, as some people have described it? Or has it all just been overblown and it was just a coincidence, perhaps, that adding Fishu immediately resulted in a grand final win?
I mean, that did alleviate some of the comms issues that we were having. Because he's like... the thing with Joey C or Fishy is that he plays baked all the time. Back then, at least. So he never really had much input. Like, he's just like a TF2 machine that just plays like on autopilot sort of thing. And with like... I can't remember why it happened, but with Greg, he actually rage quit the team before the final. Like he decided he wasn't kicked or anything. He just decided he didn't want to play.
Right.
I can't remember why now. But again, Greg, I'm still really good friends with. So I can't remember what it was over or why it happened. But yeah, he did it of his own merit. But I mean, yeah, it worked out for us. But I think a lot of that was purely down to it just took some pressure off the comms a little bit.
And then you went forwards with Team Infused. Oh, let's talk about the game actually itself. Do you remember anything about that grand final? Was that a momentous period in your TF2 career, being able to win that season eventually?
I don't remember anything about that at all, really. Like, I just remember the whole kicking thing beforehand, and then going on to win it. I can't remember if it was a 2-1 or 3-0. I remember actually Stefan writing afterwards after the game, "Sorry team," and that became a whole joke.
Yeah, the sorry team, my fault.
Yeah, I remember that, but no, I don't remember anything else about that much.
I'll see if I can tickle your memory bones. You had a golden cap win on Badlands, and then I think the second map was Gully Wash, and you won that. So you won it in 2 straight maps. I think they were both fairly close, but
that's quite surprising.
Yeah, I know. I think that really fed into the storyline of it being, it's literally Greg. That was the problem. But
no, I don't.
You don't remember anything about how, what went correctly for you that night?
Not at all. Like, I'm surprised anything did go correctly, to be honest, because given my history with playing with Dunc, things have never really gone correctly for us. Like, I remember there's one of my favourite moments with Infused and Dunc is that there's a frag video of it, actually. Or it's in a frag video, rather.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
So we were on Gully Wash last holding.
Oh, yeah.
They had
yeah.
You know it, you know what I'm on about, yeah?
Go on,
okay.
tell.
They had... the enemy team had a spy, and he was coming in through main. Dunc wasn't looking at main at the time, so he looks down, sees me, and what looks like a friendly player.
Helping you out on the point.
Yeah, exactly, helping out on the point, because the enemy team were pushing in, obviously. So Dunc decides to Uber the player that's running towards the point. What Dunc doesn't realise is that enemy player is 1, a spy, and 2, running towards me. So I'm now fighting an Ubered spy at melee range. And I die, and we lose that point, and I think, if memory serves the game,
I think
off
so.
Dunc Ubering a spy. So that was pretty fucking funny. Obviously not at the time, like, I was really angry that happened.
That's a classic, yeah.
But yeah, that's in a frag video somewhere.
In fact, I think, was that not at LAN? I thought that was in a LAN frag video, actually. I seem to remember it being put in the outros of some LAN frag video.
I think that's actually another one where Dunc gets backstabbed by, I think, Shintaz. And there's someone does the video editing where they edit Dunc's face onto the medic as he flies off.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the I-40... That was an I-40 frag movie, wasn't it? So, bringing it back to this game, though, the grand final, the season 11, the one where you win, you finally topple Epsilon. If it was such a grudge situation between Infused and Epsilon, and you wanted to get to the top, and you had that motivation. Why does the victory not stick in your mind? Why was that not a sweet moment for you?
Because then at the top, around that sort of time, it became more about the LANs than anything else. So like, you know, we went online, but LAN is far more important. I think that still sticks true to this day in gaming in general. Like, LAN victories are far more important and meaningful than an online victory.
And that brings us perfectly into the next LAN that came up, which was I-46. And
this is my least favorite LAN.
No, actually, let's leave I-46 just for a moment, Seb.
Right.
Don't worry, we won't trigger you just yet, because I think just before that, in season 12, actually, there was this explosive fallout between you and Mike rage quit the team. He went to join Quarantine. He played with them for I-46. Now I literally have no idea what that was about.
So
but I know there was a lot of drama, and you managed to repair it. So
I seem to think that the drama at the time was, Mike doesn't think it was this. Mike can't remember why it happened, but I think it was because Mike had a problem with my calling. But Mike doesn't agree with that. He doesn't remember it at all as to why it happened. Because obviously I'm still good friends with Mike, and I play in an Overwatch team with him. But yeah, I can't remember if that's not how it happened, because that's how I remember it being, that he just got fed up with the way I called the micromanaging thing and got fed up and didn't want to play with that anymore. So he quit.
Does Mike really have a basis for dismissing your opinion when he literally can't remember a thing about how it happened? He says, I can't remember anything, but that's definitely not how it went down.
Yeah, I guess not.
So, was that kind of... You had to bring in some players then to play at I-46. Mike was playing for a totally different team. Yep. And then after that, you were almost instantly repaired the friendship. You were instantly back together on the same team within the span of maybe 2 months.
Which also maybe makes it mean that ties in with his idea of it not being that, because we went onto a team together afterwards again anyway.
And he had to deal with your calling anyway.
Exactly, yeah. So maybe it wasn't that.
Yeah. Mike will know. Mike will take it to his grave. He remembers, you see. He's letting you have the blissful ignorance. Yeah. So, I-46 then. Let's get back to triggering you with your worst LAN memory ever. So, you go into it with a bit of a strange lineup, to be honest. You've got a very different one to the one that you were playing the season with. You've lost Mike, who was one of your best soldiers. You've brought in Hat, and you've got the fantastic Darn as well. What was your thought process going into that LAN? Being an underdog to really take the tournament, even from the EU side, and then having to face up against the Americans?
I don't know, to be honest. Like, that was just a whole mess of a LAN. But I remember parts of it pretty well. Like that, I think the roster was on Dunk's behalf. Like, he pulled in Darn, he pulled in Hat, he pulled in, I think it was Bibbin.
Oh yeah, Bibbin, of course.
Yeah, because we had Cookye and, like, on paper our lineup isn't that bad. Like, we have Bibbin and Cookye on Scout, who at the time were in their prime. Darn on Soldier, like, he's not bad, but you know, Hat on Soldier, who I think he was always okay. I can't remember too well how good a player Hat was. He's a nice guy, but I can't remember how good a player he was. And then Dunc, who is just, you know, same with Dunc, he's a good medic. But yeah, like I don't like, everything just seems to go wrong at LAN. Like, Darn is a very angry player, and he reacts poorly to things happening. Bibbin and Cookye, I think, were playing on 60 Hz monitors, so they have probably the worst LAN performance of their lives ever. I think I actually had one of my best LANs ever at that event, which is unfortunate, because I remember playing against some, I can't remember the team, but I remember it was a French team.
Punchline.
Punchline, that was it. Punchline. I remember across 3 maps I got 120 frags.
What?
120
frags across 3 maps?
Yeah.
Across an hour and a half, you had 120 frags. That's ridiculous.
And I can't remember if we lost that or if it was a close game. I think it was a close 2-1 game that we won, I think. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, I remember getting 120 frags across 3 maps. And kind of the game against... I was really upset that I didn't actually get to play against Banny as well. Because obviously at that time, I think me and him were being hailed as the best demos in our region. So I obviously really wanted to play up against Banny, because I was still in the kind of thought process of I want to prove that I'm the best at this game. Let me play. I want to play against Banny and and win, so that people will think that I'm the best. And I was really upset that I didn't get to play against Banny. Still am. Like it would have been nice to play it back then when I think I want to. Maybe not in my prime because I think I improved so much as a player playing with Epsilon and with Nox. But yeah, we went on to play. I think it was Mix Up. I think they were called.
Yeah.
With the Platinum team when he was on Demoman. And again, I think I had a really good game, but they absolutely stomped us. Like it was a quick 5-0, 5-0, and that was horrible. Horrible to look back on.
And then you went down into the lower bracket, and you came up against TCM.
Yeah.
What do you
I don't
remember?
I don't remember much from that game at all. Actually, was the deck up to 3 maps?
No, that was
2. Did they stomp us?
as well.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, so it gets worse. Like, I've blocked this part of my memory, you see. Yeah, I don't remember anything from the TCM bit.
Do you remember the PC like a toaster? What happened?
I remember that quote where Dan raged so much that he hit the table or the PC or something, and ended up turning off because he was. I remember the map. It was on Gully Wash, and he was in the little like where the ramp is to go down into lower lobby, and he was there trying to kill. Like he got a completely free. He had what should have been a free pick on a medic. Like he walked up behind, they didn't see him, fired 2 rockets, missed them both. Like because the medic was standing on the ledge and he shot below it, and the other soldier turned around, killed him. He raged and his PC shut down, and the atmosphere was gone. Then like we knew we were fucked.
Was that is that just one of the things playing with Dan? Was that just one of the things that you had to take along with it? Was this was the rageness?
I don't know. I never really played much with Dan. That's my only experience playing with him. But we were definitely
a good first impression.
No, not really. Like I don't know. Me and I kind of it's kind of like a personality clash with Dan because at the time when I was young I was a really quiet kid and I kind of kept to myself, and then I've got Dan who's like the most outspoken, big personality I could think of at the time in TF2. Like everyone loved him for it. Like I enjoyed watching it as like I enjoyed him from an outside perspective, but being on his team and so close with that sort of attitude, I couldn't really cope with it at the time. I don't think.
So after I-46, there comes probably one of the most influential backroom meetings ever to be held in TF2. And I remember Slick coming around as soon as Epsilon had been knocked out and gathering up these EU players and whispering in Nox's ear and then dragging Byte over from quarantine. Sorry, not Byte. Mike over from quarantine, etc. But how did that actually go down? Who approached who? Who decided to create this Epsilon super team after I-46? And why were you so motivated?
So I was just sitting in the crowd watching the grand final on my own, and Slick came down and sat next to me. I can't remember the exact conversation, but something along those lines makes you sick, doesn't it? Like, how are you feeling not being in the final? How was that for you? Do you still want to play the game? Are you looking forward to next year for this event to happen again? And I was like, yeah. And then he, I think it was, do you want to make a super team and win it? And yeah, obviously I did. And then he told me about the lineup he had in mind. And it was really exciting, yeah. I think just from the lineup alone was what motivated me. Like sitting there watching the final, seeing the 2 American teams playing, not being on that stage, and then hearing the lineup and the potential it had, was enough to motivate me.
Was the lineup that he had right then, as he just thought of it, the one that you ended up playing with?
Yeah, it is. Like no one turned down the offer. Everyone wanted that lineup. I think that was the best lineup we could have had at the time, and everyone else realized that.
Looking back on it now, would you have changed the lineup in any way? If you were Slick, you had this ability to create the super team, draft anybody you wanted, would you have changed any of the players?
No, definitely not. Because the thing is, like, so for example, a player like Gear, he might not be as flashy as any other soldier, but he does his job and he does it really well. Like, I can't think of any other soldier at the time, maybe even now, that could play the flank like Gear could. Like, Gear took such little heals and still did the same job as every other roamer in the game. It's kind of remarkable, really. Because like our combo is really heal heavy. Like me and Mike took a lot of heals. We probably the biggest heal heavy combo in the game at the time. So the rest of our players like did incredible jobs with the lack of heals that they would receive.
What was it like playing with Gear? What kind of a person was he to play on the team with?
Really smart player, always had an input, like always proactive. So if there was ever an issue, like he'd be quick on solving, like why did that go wrong and what can we do to fix it, sort of thing. Like a pleasure to play with. Like yeah, really good player, really good person.
And walk me through the scouts that you played with, because you started playing with Shocky and Bash, and then you started playing with Shocky and Walters, I believe, for the first season, and then brought in Bash halfway through, and then switched over the roles that they were playing because one of them was playing pocket and more aggressive.
Yeah, I think at the time we had Walters on pocket and Stefan on aggressive scout. And the only reason we changed that was because Walters couldn't go to LAN. Like the story of Walters' career, basically, is that he couldn't or wouldn't go to LAN.
Haunted 2.0.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, I've had some unlucky teammates with LANs, haven't I? But yeah, so we replaced him and then we brought in Bash. I can't remember why Bash. Like obviously he was really good and he was more than qualified for the position, but I can't remember why or how we came about him. But it worked. Like the German trio worked really well together, and Stefan adapted really well to his new role. Like Stefan's the best pocket scout I've ever played with. Like that's the other thing with my kind of career, I guess. I've been very lucky with who I've been kind of surrounded by. Like my combo was my team to protect me was Mike and Stefan. Like I can't ask for a better team.
And what was the team atmosphere like to actually play with? Were you all just purely driven by the motivation of going to I-49, smashing this competition, winning absolutely everything? Or were you a team that also managed to actually get along? You know, were you a bunch of people who were brought together to win? Or did you end up becoming something more as well?
I think the former mostly. Like we didn't really do anything outside of TF2. Like we were all 100% focused on on what our end goal was. The end goal was and always was winning iSeries. Like we were literally like sort of the Captain America sort of thing, where you come out of this chamber and you have like one purpose. Like that was us. Our one purpose was to win for Europe.
And I've heard a lot about this strategy that you had, and I'd like your insight. And it was Shocky, go choke, deny the scout and soldier, and then just wipe everybody on mid. How did that how did that come about?
That was more or less the call, yeah. Like Nox's Stefan was unfortunate in that he had a lot of responsibility all the time. So it was like at the start of middles, back then you normally used to always have like the demo and the scout together, scout fending off anyone that was rushing the Demoman. And at the time, I had a lot of focus on me at middles. So Stefan would have the horrible job of having to fend off like 1, 2, 3 players at any one time even. And that was genuinely a call a lot of times. Stefan go choke and kill scout, soldier, scout, whatever it was. And that eventually became like the whole meme thing that got posted at one of the iSeries, I think, where Nox said it in an interview, maybe? I can't remember.
Yeah. He said it after an interview. He said, "Yeah, we just send Shocky choke. He denies scout and soldier, and we win."
Yeah, exactly.
No wonder if your scouts win in 2v1s every mid.
But no, like he generally could though. Like that's the thing with Stefan. Like he's probably the best scout to have ever played this game. Like movement, aim wise, everything. Like he was a really smart player, and no, like I don't think anyone could have done the job as good as he did.
With the players on Epsilon, how much do you think was phenomenal individual talent that was brought together, and how much do you think was your and Nox's understanding of the game and the ability to, call effectively and translate what you thought should be done into action?
I think the majority of it was just raw individual talent. Like you have players like Mike and Stefan who were in their prime, I think, during Epsilon, and then myself as well. I think I was in my prime at Epsilon. Like I had insane amounts of damage. Like there was even at LAN, I think I managed to pull out 500 DPM in one of the games, in a full 30-minute game. Like everyone was just at their peak at that time, and everyone had a really good understanding of the game. But not to take anything away from Nox, like, Nox is the smartest caller I've ever played with. He like really does understand TF2 and exactly how to counter everything that can possibly be done in the game. And I think the calling majority of it falls onto Nox, and he should take credit for it rather than me. Like, because our balance of calling is that he would set up. He does the more strategic side of it, where he would set up pushes, counter pushes, holds, that sort of thing. Whereas I just control the flow of the fight, and I'm the one that's being the loudest and shouting who is damaged the most and who should be focused, and that sort of thing.
Do you think it was a nice counterbalance between the two of you?
Yeah, definitely. Like, in any other team I played in, it's always been hard to balance the calling. Because I think with TF2, there's so much to say that it's hard to leave that responsibility on one person. I think when in the later stage of Epsilon, where after I-Series, where we lost Nox for a little bit, and we just decided we wanted to keep playing for a little bit, I did all of it myself then. But I think a balance is important because it's really draining on one person to have all that responsibility themselves.
With the team, that's it's a fantastic collection of individuals, and you've all played in quite different teams. Nox comes from the Epsilon style of play. You and Mike have played in Infused. You've got other players that have played in a variety of different top teams. Was there ever a clash of styles, clash of personalities, some niggle within how players wanted to play together that you weren't able to iron out and just had to deal with?
No, like that's the other thing, is that we're all very open to ideas, and it's very receptive in general. Like, if there was an issue, we'd happily sit and watch a replay, or we'd set time to watch a replay if there was an issue, and have a proper talk as a team about it, and see what can be done to fix it. So there was never it's never a dictatorship like in a controlling style of calling or of the team in general, like we'd have with other players. No, Epsilon worked really well together. We really gelled.
After I-49, so let's talk a little bit about the aftermath of I-49 before we go into the event itself. After I-49, your team decides to stop playing after another season. So you play a season with Raymond instead of Nox, and then you guys decide to call it quits. Does that tie back into the whole motivation just being, you were Captain Europe with your one goal being to win the I-Series, or were there other factors that came into this as well?
No, I think it's mostly that. That and the fact that there wasn't really anything in TF2 outside of that. Because at that time I'd already been playing TF2 for I think 5 years. So outside of I-Series, there wasn't really anything I hadn't done already. I think I've won everything you more or less can in TF2 at my time of playing. So without I-Series and the international competition, the international factor, and proving yourself to be the best, there wasn't really anything left for me to do, because there wasn't other lands really, especially any lands in Europe that there'd be good. I say good competition. That would have good games at, because we were still pretty much in control of Europe even after I-49.
Does the why were you as a team never interested in defending your title at an I-Series? You must have known that come I-52, the Americans are going to be, just as motivated as you were. After I-46, they've been absolutely slaughtered. It was a double European final. There's going to be some kind of rematch, the third showdown. Were you not interested in that? You weren't interested in defending your title, keeping it for Europe, facing bigger and better competition later on?
No, I definitely was. I still went to each I-Series after that, the yearly ones, and I'd watch the TF2. But I think because I think if you wanted to be taken seriously and compete seriously at those events internationally, you'd have to play for that the whole year. Otherwise, you wouldn't be at a strong enough level. And I didn't really have the motivation anymore after playing TF2 for so long to commit. Especially, I just discovered League of Legends as well at the time. So I had the same magic happen with me when I first started TF2. I was captivated by what TF2 was. The same thing happened with League of Legends. I was just I enjoyed that so much that I didn't want to have to give up practicing that to compete in a game I'd already done everything I'd wanted to in.
It makes sense. Let's take a look at I-49 then, which is where you and the players that you played with really peaked in terms of TF2, the level that you were playing at, as well as the achievement that you managed as well. You became the world champions, essentially, of TF2. Going into the event, you're facing American competition. At I-46, everybody in Europe, despite having some some shaky kind of teams, really didn't rate the American scene that highly. Did you have a newfound respect for them coming into I-49? Were you rating them as competition, or were you still confident in yourselves primarily above all else?
We as Epsilon actually tried to kind of emulate their style of play, because I think back then Europe was a really defensive region. Like we played the safest style of TF2 I can remember, and then suddenly coming to I series and playing against the Americans and seeing that they were just they'd literally take whatever ground they could, without, because that's the thing as well. Europe was really Uber centric back then, so if you didn't have Uber, you didn't take ground. Whereas, the American teams would just fight over every bit of ground possible with or without Uber, and that's something Epsilon tried to encapsulate and take with us to the next I series. It's just to be a more proactive team and we'll fight for everything basically.
And so, had you looked at the American competition at I-49, there was this playoff between High Rollers Gaming, the team with Banny and Sugar, etc., and the classic mix-up team as well. Were you looking at that? Were you studying these teams before you came into it?
HRG, we actually spent an hour of the week beforehand each night watching some of their replays, their demos. So we knew what we were coming up against.
Was that the kind of preparation you put into every event, or was this one special?
This one's special, yeah, because we knew we had to not get embarrassed again. Like if Europe had the same showing this I series as it did the last one, like if an American team and an Australian team ended up in the final, that would have been it for Europe. Like two international I series in a row, same result, like that'd be horrible.
We'd have to all give up on the game, really.
Yeah, exactly.
And did you do the same thing for Team Immunity when they came over? I mean, at I-49, people really weren't rating them as a particularly top-level team. The scene was small. They were the giants, the big fish in a little pond. Were you still respecting them as healthy competition?
No, we weren't. Like the only team we fully respected in that event really was HRG. Like we knew we had to be prepared for them. Like obviously we had respect for Broder, who became TCM, just because they were our counterparts from Europe and they were the closest to us in Europe, but we knew we still had control over them. Excuse me. So we weren't as worried with them, but obviously HRG we were a little bit worried just because we didn't want the same shit show to happen as did last year. But with Immunity, I think we scrimmed. We were lucky enough that they actually came over to boot camp, so we scrimmed them, and we saw enough from scrims with them that we felt satisfied and that we didn't need to watch any replays, because I think they actually streamed their scrims, and if anyone remembers it, like it was, they got steamrolled all the time during scrims.
It was an absolute car crash for them.
Yeah, it was horrible, wasn't it? I was really worried for them going into I series after their scrims, but I'm really surprised and impressed by how they turned it around for the I series itself. Like it was like a completely different team than the one that turned up to boot camp.
Was that a shock then, seeing them perform in the group stages? The only map that they lost was against you guys, and they crushed the rest of the competition. I mean, they did have some close games, but in general, they looked like an incredibly strong team. Was that? Did you start to think, we haven't really put in the prep to deal with this team?
No, because I think we still had control over them on the Gully. Like I would have liked to play them on more maps. I think we actually only ever did play them on Gullywash, which was at the time our strongest map. So it would have been nice for the format to have been better, so that there'd be more chances to play each team. Because I think one game isn't really enough to prove anything. Like maybe Immunity could have beaten us in a series or on any other map where we won't know that. But I was confident in Gullywash that we didn't need to put in anything else. And then, but at a point I thought we might have ended up meeting them in the final. They were that impressive, but then obviously they had that granary thing, and
the granary
that was a
thing.
nightmare.
It really was. Were you? Who would you have preferred to see win that game? Were you cheering on a specific team? Were you cheering on Europe just for Europe, or did you actually have an opponent that you would have preferred to face?
Well, if we would have preferred to face TCM, because obviously, like I said, we know what we're getting into with them. Like we've not lost them, and we didn't really have any close games with them in Europe before that. Like I think
you lost one map to them ever before that in the grand final.
One map,
golden cap as well.
Exactly. So we didn't really have close games with them. We almost always stomped them. Occasionally there'd be close games, but we always win the map, or as a 5-0 or whatever. So we could control them basically. Whereas with Immunity, because we didn't do any preparation for them, they were a whole different beast that we didn't really know. and they obviously turned it around for the event. So even more so, they were unknown.
What was it like taking on HRG then? When you played against them in the group stage, and then you played against them in the upper final as well, did you feel like they were going to be the ones to make it to the final? Did they feel like the strongest team that you'd faced?
Yeah, we had a really close game with them. I remember it felt like we kind of swapped roles, like Europe and America, because they played a super safe style.
Yeah.
I think that was more because of Banny though. Like he became a really safe controlling Demoman that really wasn't any fun to play against, because there's not really an element of surprise or anything to it. Like, you know how to play against it. It's difficult to play against, but you know how to play against it. It's just a case of like inching bit after bit after bit of the map to take back from them. But yeah, they were still the team to beat for us.
You had two incredibly close games against them. The one in the group stages, I think, was a granary game that you only won by a single point, and then in the upper bracket final,
it was process.
It was process, yeah, 2-1, yeah. So, do you feel like the games were as close as it seems? Because the other one in the upper bracket final was Gully Wash, and you smashed them 5-2, and I remember watching that and thinking, they've got the upper hand here. They're looking like a really strong team. But was this were the other really close scorelines because they were such a good team, or because they played the slow style, or a mixture of both?
Purely because they played the slow style. Like, the same argument could be used for, I can't remember if it's Broder or Clack Clan, but like one of the two would always play two snipers on process last. Broder, okay. So like, we eventually complained, and the rules got changed that you couldn't do that anymore. But like that slow style of TF2 just isn't fun for anyone, but players or the spectators. Like, how do you effectively push against two snipers that, if you spam them or commit any sort of damage to them and force yourself into a situation where you have to reload, they're just going to go back and change and have the upper hand on you? Like, there's just no fun in that, and it's really hard to play against.
Do you feel like TF2 is a game where, because it hasn't been designed as an esport, it does have these flaws that keep cropping up every now and again, where, as from a spectator's point of view and from a player's point of view, it can get a bit stale or slow or easy to defend?
I think so, yeah. Just the whole, like, relying around the game itself plays around the medic and its Ubers, so that in itself just slows the game down. I think it struggles because before Overwatch, no FPS had really done that. And but the other thing as well, actually, that is probably more important is that like, rounds in TF2 last a lot longer than rounds in, like, Counter-Strike. So Counter-Strike, you'll have this whole build-up of a round where there's no fighting, and suddenly there's a lot of fighting, and then that's it. Whereas TF2, there's fighting all the time. And I think that's kind of what can make it slow at times, is that there wasn't that much downtime.
And has that been something that has ever bothered you throughout your history with TF2, or have you just loved the game so much that you've been prepared to overlook any problems with it and just enjoy the mechanics of it, the competition of it, etc.?
I think at times it's bothered me against teams that would play that slow style, but like with Epsilon especially, we played a really quick style of TF2 where we just tried to have as little of that downtime as possible. Not as little of the downtime, but as much fighting as possible. Whereas, against a team that would run two snipers, or against HRG, we'd always run into that problem, and that would just frustrate us. Nox especially, Nox would get really angry at teams slowing the game down that much, because that's not what makes the game fun. Slowing it down that much. Like, yeah, okay, you might win that way, but it's not fun.
Was the decision to play Epsilon as a super fast-paced game one of what you guys found the most fun, or what you thought the game should be played as, or was it a strategy because you thought it was the best way to win?
I think it's both that it was the best way to win at the time, and what we just thought was the best way to play TF2. Because like I said, that's how the Americans played at the I series before that, and we got, like, every team got stomped by them. So we thought, like, that's how you play TF2. You don't play as defensive as we've been playing. Like, you need to be really proactive in what you're doing, and be constant with it. Yeah, we just thought that was the best way.
Seb Barton, when did your rollouts become so bad? This
They've
is a
always been
genuine question.
They've always been bad. I've never been good at rollouts. It's not been something that I poured a lot of time. Like all my time spent in TF2 has been practicing DM or like sitting on a server with friends and practicing having them run at me in like 1v1 situations or 1v2 situations. I've never sat on a server and practiced rollouts, and like I still stand by like my rollouts today. Like rollouts really aren't that important. If you win the middle by your speed, not by what you do on the middle, that just doesn't happen. Like I can't think of a time like Cadus has never always won middle against me, despite how much quicker he could be. Speed is never the influence on how it doesn't hold that much influence on how a middle will go. Like I do agree it can hold some, but when you throw in maps like Gully Wash or Badlands where you can change, or Granary, like where you can change your rollout that much, like where you're going to end up, it's too hard for your speed to have an influence because they can change like where they're coming from, or you can take a safer route and like you can go with scouts and clear the stickies. Like it's never that important.
What do you think are the most important things? What did you prioritize in your practice? You say you were talking about DM and stuff like that, and you were, you learned a lot from Byte. You learned a lot when you played with Nox. If you had to prioritize, you've got this baby Demoman, and you have to turn him into a full grown-up adult Demoman to contest the current Premiership players. And you say, little baby Demoman, this
is so strange.
numlocked will teach you how to get good at TF2.
Mm-hmm.
What would you start with? What do you think is the top priority if someone was going to start learning how to become a top level Demoman?
I would have them sitting on servers and practicing getting out of sticky situations. Like just have them scouts running at them or soldiers jumping at them. Practice with stickies, practice with pipes, because you'll find that yourself in those situations so much where you're being focused by the enemy team, and you're not always going to have like a Stefan or a Mike to protect you. Because as a Demoman, you don't really want to divert your attention away from where the enemy combo is. Like you're always going to want to be spamming where the main group of their team is. So having to protect yourself against flank players like within an instant, not like you can't give them so much attention that it's you that's focusing on the flank players. You need to be able to deal with them in an instant and then go back to your main job. So I think the ability to do that is vital to keeping yourself alive. But also I think watching replays is just the other one. Like you need to be getting into the habit of thinking watch Demoman and think, why would they do that? Why did they do that in that situation instead of, or whatever? Because that's a lot of what I did. I'd watch the replays and I'd question what Demoman were doing.
Did you ever accidentally watch a bad Demoman and think, why is he doing that? Oh wait, it's just because he's bad.
I don't think so. Like the Demomen I watched the most were Rib, Himsy, Byte, and even Joske actually. And I remember getting into a big feud with Joske over something like.
Oh yeah, God, I remember that actually. That's a blast from the past.
Yeah, I got the logs actually a while back. They're still on the internet somewhere if you search numlocked Joske.
Yeah.
And he threatened to fight me.
Oh yeah, he was going to beat you up at LAN, wasn't he?
Yeah. As my
what was it about?
First and only ever threat. I think he just didn't like my attitude. Because it was the whole ego thing and how he thinks. He thought that I didn't respect him enough or something for what he had done for me in the game. I think when all he'd done is given me demos to watch. Yeah, he just felt like I had a shitty attitude towards him.
Did you have a shitty attitude towards him?
I think I had a shitty attitude towards everyone at that age, honestly. There was nothing about him, but he was the only one that ever wanted to beat me up over it. So he actually threatened me. He said, if you come to UK at ESA, which was like the biggest TF2 event supposedly ever at the time, but let's not talk about UK ESA because it was horrible, and we never actually got paid for it. Really? Yeah, but he said if you come to there, I'm gonna fuck you up basically, and he never showed up to that LAN or any LAN after that. Until a good couple of years, year or two later.
Did you call his bluff?
Sorry?
You called his bluff. You turned up there with your posse.
Yeah.
Your UK posse.
No, it wasn't my UK. It was my Vale posse.
Oh, your Vale posse.
So the posse
you had Skinny and Arnold and.
Yeah.
Nice. This kind of ties in back to the beginning thing. Has that been, just for people watching, is that the kind of stuff that you would expect to see in the TF2 community? If people are beginning to start competitive, should they expect to have LAN threats thrown at them?
That's my only threat ever. And across any game I've ever played, I've never been actually threatened with a fight at a LAN. So that's a very rare occurrence.
Yeah, I've never really heard of a genuine LAN threat. I've heard of many joking ones, but
Yeah, exactly.
no very serious ones.
No.
That's a classic. That's a brilliant one. So I can't remember exactly when it was, but at some point, numlocked, you became the precursor for my Twitch channel, and
Did I?
your
Seb Barton.
your player base, your general ethos of streaming somehow seeped into how I like to do things. The same kind of people enjoy watching yours as they did mine. And I used to be a big fan of your stream as well. How did that start? What internet problems did you have? And what was the atmosphere like in your stream?
I think we would have both just. I think the reason that's happened is just because we're both really AIDS. Like, genuinely, that's the only reason I can think of that happening.
That's a really, really horrible slur against me.
I think you agree though. Yeah, like, so my stream was really shit at the time. I remember playing, I think it was a really poor upload speed. The stream was in like, you could only watch it in like, I think 280, 240p or something.
A good bit rate.
Yeah. So it was like the lowest quality possible. But people still watched. I have no idea why, but people genuinely watched my stream and watched me stream like scrims, pubs, whatever shit I ended up playing.
Daisy, CS:GO.
Daisy, yeah, exactly. Like whatever I played, people would watch. And eventually, like I ended up, people started donating so that I could upgrade my internet, and I ended up getting a good connection and streaming things properly. Didn't really change my viewer base; they were still as aged as I am. So the stream upgraded, but nothing else did.
It spawned some incredible Twitch memes. The streamer, you answer questions, play scout.
I honestly, like, I love and miss my stream so much because the people that were there and the stuff that happened on the stream was so funny. Like I still occasionally go back and watch the videos, like loud noises, 1, 2, 3, 4, all them. Like I remember them happening and the chat going crazy over them. It's just so much fun. Like age things happening makes me laugh so much, and I think that's just what happened on my stream. Like AIDS things would happen and I'd laugh, and people would find like the combination of AIDS things happening and me laughing funny.
Why do people find your laugh funny, Seb?
I don't know.
No.
I don't know. I find it funny myself. Like there's like, I'll go back and watch my own videos, and like if I hear myself cracking up, it just makes me crack up as well. I don't know.
It's an incredible laugh. It's really just, it's something to behold.
Like I can remember like double mixes where you and me have been there, and like one of us will start laughing, and it'll just trigger the other one, and there's just like a cycle of laughing constantly because we both have pretty aged laughs.
What happened with your internet then? Why have you had such bad internet in your recent history playing video games? It's plagued you in for quite a while now.
I think I just live in the middle of nowhere. That's it. Like where I'm currently at my parents' house. So obviously, when I was out in Turkey, the internet was pretty good then, but I don't really enjoy streaming from Turkey because I felt kind of awkward being surrounded by people that didn't really speak English, and I couldn't be myself. Like I couldn't be loud and shout at games and laugh and stuff because they wouldn't understand what was going on. Like none of them spoke English, so I'd look mental.
You are.
I looked mental in English, let alone like another language. So, but yeah, like I don't know. I've just been really unlucky with the internet, I guess. And it's kind of stopped me from streaming, which is unfortunate. But
I hear a rumor that in order to activate your upload, and this, as far as I'm aware, is not even how the internet works remotely.
right,
But I've heard a rumor that in order to activate your upload, you had to be running several streams in the background in order to have a download high enough.
That's true, That's true. Like when I had my own place, my internet, I don't know what, like I was with Sky Broadband, I don't know what it was, but for me to be able to stream, I had to have 2 streams open in the background. Otherwise, I wouldn't have enough upload to stream myself, and it made zero fucking sense. But I'm telling the truth when if I didn't have those streams open, I couldn't stream. Like that's real. I don't understand it. No one understands it, but that is what it was.
I've never heard of that before. I've never heard of it since.
No, I've not.
It's an incredible problem. It's a singular problem.
Yeah, but there you go. I could stream because of that. So.
How did you even discover that?
Sheer luck. Literally sheer luck. Had I not discovered that, I wouldn't have streamed at all because it wouldn't have been possible.
Let's talk a little bit about your time in Turkey as well and your League of Legends career because it's very relevant for your TF2 career actually because it really called a halt as you were talking about before to you like making a comeback for the scene maybe for I-52 or something. Like if you had the motivation, would you have perhaps considered that if you weren't playing League of Legends at the time?
Um, it's a weird one because before that, each I series I would never really would have like it's cool like the build up to it and knowing what the teams are going to be going through and what's going to happen in the I series, but I'd never really thought I want to be back there until I get to the event. And then when I'm at the event and I'm watching everyone play TF2 and I'm like hearing the crowd cheer and everything, it's like fuck, I miss it so much. Like I miss like being on that stage where they are and competing for that that title of best TF2 team in the world.
So, your League of Legends career. Give us a very brief run through because I must admit I have very little knowledge of League of Legends whatsoever and really don't understand the tiers or the structure of the league at all. But I understand that you somehow made your way up to playing at a professional level and moved to Turkey.
So I started off playing ranked. Season 3 I was platinum. Season 4 I was diamond 1. No, Season 2 I was platinum. Season 3 I was diamond 1. Season 4 I was master challenger. Season 5 I was master challenger. I started off playing for a team in Europe and we qualified for the challenger series. We got knocked out first round, but I played in the challenger series, which is like the stepping stone to becoming a professional player in the LCS. So we kind of failed at the first hurdle there. I ended up joining a UK team, which I ended up playing at many I series and other events around the UK. Won everything for like 6 months. We literally like same sort of Epsilon thing where we were unbeaten in the UK and won everything there. I ended up getting an offer to play for a Turkish team. So LCS is in all the major regions like Europe, America, or the Asia, that sort of thing. And then it's also in the smaller regions. So like Brazil has an LCS, Turkey has an LCS, and so on. I got an offer to move to Turkey LCS, and it is professional league. Like you get a salary. You have a chance to compete at the major events with the other regions, that sort of thing. So I move over there. I don't know anything about the region itself. I don't know anything about the team that I'm going to play with. I just know that I was going to get paid to play League of Legends, and I had to move to Turkey. So I trial for them. Takes a week.
Wait, sorry. Just to interrupt you here for a moment.
Right.
You say you've done no research. Did you get in touch with the players? Did you know what living conditions was going to be like? Did you know about the contract that you got yourself into? Did you have an idea of where you were going, how to speak Turkish, how to make your way around the country?
No. There was one player in the team that could speak English well enough to translate stuff for me.
Would you say you were prepared for a visit to live in Turkey, working professionally?
I wasn't prepared for a holiday, let alone living there for like 3 or 4 months.
Didn't even bring a towel.
Yeah. So yeah, I end up being invited over there, and I take my 4-hour car journey from where I live to the airport. I get on a 4-hour plane, and then I have a 2-hour train and boat journey and taxi journey to where the gaming house is. It's on the 8th floor of an apartment block. We take this dinky elevator that fits 2 people in at a time. And yeah, get in the house. So I walk in. There's a tiny kitchen to the right, living room. It just looks like a normal apartment with living room and dining room in front of you. To the left was the bathroom with a shower and bath in it. And then you had 3 bedrooms. That was the other thing. There was only 3 bedrooms, okay? And when you think of a League of Legends team, there's 5 players, and then there's a manager, and then there's an analyst. The organization we played for were quite rich, but it was its first time ever as an LCS team. That was their first split. So they were new to the whole thing as well. And I was lucky enough that because I was a foreign player, they gave me my own room. So 3 bedrooms, 2 of them are single rooms. And that means, and the third one was a double. So that's only 4 beds. We then had 3 more people to accommodate for, and there were 3 sofas in the living room. So yeah, people slept on the sofas, which is really shitty if you're having to play, like, well, regardless of your condition, having to sleep on a sofa is shit. And that went on for 3 months that we had people living on the sofa and stuff. And what makes it worse is that towards the end of the season, they actually wanted to bring in like 3 more players as subs to live in the house. But I put my foot down. I had to speak to the translator, and he had to speak to them and say that that's fucking stupid. Like, the living conditions aren't good enough as it is, let alone bringing in, you know.
So what then? You would have had 10 people living in a 3-bedroom.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was happened. So the living conditions weren't that great. But you know, I had my own bedroom, so I didn't really complain because that was nice having.
I'm sure the others did.
Yeah. But yeah, it was nice to, you know, be away from all that because, like I said, no one spoke English on the team other than one person. So I didn't really have anyone to speak to over there. My entire day was compromised of playing League of Legends with a bunch of people that didn't really understand me. I just had to do what I was told because I couldn't really argue my case otherwise. It was too difficult. So I just ended up playing a bunch of champions that I didn't really like or weren't my best to play. In a team that I couldn't really coordinate properly with. Like I just felt like kind of alone on the team sort of thing. And then we did actually bring in another European player. He was a German. He got brought in before the playoffs. So before the playoffs, we were second and fell down to like I think 4th or something. So we brought in this is the other thing on the team. The atmosphere was really shit on the team because the previous jungler was hated by everybody. Like they wanted to kick him, but they couldn't for some reason, and he wouldn't leave. Because he just wanted to get the money for playing.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of arguing and shouting all the time in Turkish. So it was very awkward to live over there with all that happening. So I'm in a foreign country, no one speaks my language. Everyone's very angry at each other in Turkish. I have no idea what's going on.
Was this on the in-game, or were they angry with each other?
No, all the time. All the time. Fucking hell, it was horrible. Like, yeah, it's just I didn't enjoy living there at all. I really like Turkey and the culture and everything over there, but the team and the environment I was in, not so much. So yeah, we ended up getting another jungler before playoffs, but that was even worse. Like everyone hated him even more because he was young. I think he was 17 or 18. He had less of an idea of what he's getting into than I did. So he was asking questions all the time. And when you only have one person that can translate for you, that one person is going to get very fucking annoyed if you're always going to him asking him everything. And he obviously relayed that to the rest of the Turkish players that this one player was fucking annoying. So there was a lot of hating and stuff. Like there would be a lot of arguments where like the Turkish players that didn't speak English knew very little. So they could say things like "fuck you" and "I hate you," which became 2 phrases that got said quite a lot towards this other player. So yeah, like I had to spend a month longer there than I should have as well anyway because of how badly playoffs went. Because we should have, you know, done well and at least stayed in the league, but we ended up having to play relegations, which happens like 3 weeks after playoffs, or whatever. We won relegations, but yeah, I had to stay there longer than I should have. So after that, I go home, and then there's this whole drama with the team where, supposedly, so like the other European player ends up having to stay over there because he has visa issues, and what this means is that he can't leave the country, because no one's helping him sort out his visa. Because everyone would ignore him. He was so annoying that people would just ignore what he has to do. So regardless of how important that was, like the visa's pretty fucking important, but people would just ignore him and not help him out at all with that issue. So he just get ignored, and he ended up actually being homeless for a month, like where he had to live on the floor in the gaming cafe that was owned by the team.
You said so supposedly at the beginning of this. Is this supposedly, or is this something that you know happened?
Well, okay, yeah. Let me rephrase that then. He 100% lived on the floor of a gaming cafe for a month, where random people would walk by, obviously, and come in and play games while he was sleeping. And that was his living condition. Like he told me he was just eating. Like the other thing as well is he didn't have a salary because of the time he joined. He was only gonna get money if we did well, like as a bonus sort of thing. And so we didn't do well. So he had, I think, he was given 300 liras, which equates to about 80 quid maybe to last him the month. So he was just eating bread all the time, every meal bread. for that month. Like, holy shit!
That's
It is really fucked up. And
yeah.
he was stuck there for a month until they eventually helped him out. But supposedly he was beaten up as well by the organization owner. Like apparently he was like, I say apparently because he's told me one thing and then the organization told me one thing, because they asked me to release a statement on it. Like I didn't have any fucking idea what went on. I just said they were nice to me, which is true, they were. I didn't have an issue. But this guy is saying, he's saying that he was like he was held back by the owner's family, like cousins and brothers and whatnot, while the owner did him in, basically, like threw some punches for free, sort of thing. And he was then forced to take pictures at the airport, shaking hands with them and stuff, showing that nothing bad had happened, and they sent him on his way. And so he was over there for like a month and a half or something. So my time in Turkey was really fucked up, and the people that I was surrounded by was really fucked up. But yeah, I wouldn't go back there. I like
No.
Turkey, but everything that happened over there was such a mindfuck and such like so weird. Like I never thought I'd see that side of esports. But I guess that's what I get for leaving Europe.
Or for joining League, perhaps.
Well, or for joining League, yeah.
Did that actually taint your view of the game? Is that why you've become disheartened with League of Legends, or was that like an in-game thing, raging at the game, finding it unenjoyable?
I think both. Like the game itself wasn't that enjoyable towards the end because I just get angry at things not going right. But I didn't really care much for playing League professionally after that incident or that experience because I just didn't enjoy. It wasn't fun. Like I'd have to play so my schedule over there was I had to be up by 12, ready to play games at 1, so I'd have an hour free time to get lunch and breakfast, whatever. And then from 1 till I think 5 with scrims, I'd have an hour free for dinner, and then it was I think 6 till 11 scrims, hour watching replay, and then I'd have from 12 till 3 solo queue, and then 3 a.m. was free time. But it's 3 a.m. What am I going to do in my free time? I have to be up in like 9 hours, so I just went to bed. And that was my schedule. Like I didn't really have a day off because for some reason the players didn't ask for it, and their day off was just spent playing solo queue anyway. So that was it, 7 days a week, and I hated that. Like I wouldn't want to do that again.
What did you initially like about League of Legends, or what do you still like about the game that you don't find in TF2? What do you personally find enjoyable about the MOBA play that you don't find in TF2 in this FPS kind of genre?
I think like the only reason I was drawn to it is because it's different from anything I've ever played before. Like before then I only had experience with FPS games, so like Paintball, Wolfenstein, Counter-Strike 1.6, Source, Condition Zero, TF2, Day of Defeat, whatever. I'd never played anything like a MOBA before. So it's just like I like challenging myself in games and trying to pick up things and be good at them, without any previous experience. So it was just that, really.
So let's move on to your time with Overwatch. So you decide to come back from League of Legends. Instead of going back to TF2, you've seen this new game. You're obviously hyped. The players on your team are interested. What attracted you to Overwatch?
The players. Like I actually wasn't that bothered about Overwatch at first. Like it got announced and stuff, and I was like, it looks fun. I'll play that when it comes out. I wasn't really too fussed about getting into the beta and going as hard as we have been. It wasn't until Mike and Nox spoke to me. I think it was one where they were with Reason. I think it was. I can't remember what LAN that was. I-55, I-52.
Yes, I-55. Yeah,
I-55. Yeah. Yeah. Nox and Mike spoke to me about possibly taking the Epsilon team and going into Overwatch. And I was all for it. It was exciting. And Epsilon were prepared to support us properly, and they were going to get us into the beta. And we're like, yeah, that sounds great, let's do it. So that then also ties in with us playing TF2, because obviously we played like a season just to get synergy and stuff. Like we didn't really care much about winning TF2 then. We just wanted to get used to playing with each other because we couldn't at the time because Overwatch wasn't out yet. And we still managed to get second in the season, despite I'd not played the game for like I don't know how long, and the rest of the guys not really playing anymore, or not playing as much as they used to anyway. And we didn't really scrim either. Like we played maybe once a week, twice a week sort of thing. yeah, it was just the players. Like I was excited to play because I absolutely loved everyone that I was on Epsilon with. Especially Nox and Mike. I have huge respect for them as players, and I get on with both of them really well.
Just as a side note, before we tackle Overwatch and the stuff that went on there, what do you think it is about TF2 where the players of kind of last year or maybe even further back, when you think about when you were really at the top of the scene along with Mike and Nox, what is it about TF2 where you can construct a team based on people who previously have been at the top level, shove them straight back in with very little practice, and they're already straight back at the top level? I can't imagine it happening with many other esports. Is it just because it's a small scene?
I think that too, but I think the fact that the game itself doesn't really change much. Like the way the game is played is always going to be the same. I think. It's like the way middles run down, and the best way to push into a second point, or the best way to push around choke points. That's always going to be the same. So as long as you retain that information and just remember how to do those sort of things, you'll still be able to play the game at a good enough level. Because aiming itself, you'll never really lose as long as you still play FPS games or still play games even. You're not going to forget how to use a mouse.
I sometimes do.
Well,
I do in between maps.
That just ties in with the whole AIDS thing, doesn't it?
It really does. So, what happened with Epsilon then? They say they're going to give you Overwatch passes. They're going to get you into beta. We're going to fully support you. It's going to be the I-49 Epsilon team, Epsilon Overwatch. You're not with Epsilon. You're with G2.
Yeah, I don't really know what happened. Like we were promised keys with them, and then I think weeks or even a month went by, and we still went in the beta, and we just kind of had enough. Like we weren't with Slick. Previously, when we were in Epsilon before, our first point of contact with Epsilon was always Slick, because he is Epsilon, he's the CEO. But obviously, as time's gone on and Epsilon's gotten bigger, it's harder. It's harder to keep that level of contact with him. Especially when you're just a team in his organization. Despite the level of relationship that players like me, Mike, Stefan, Nox, and even Mitzi would have with him because we've worked with him before. He's still a difficult guy to get hold of because he's really busy. And we didn't have another point of contact, so we were getting frustrated that we didn't have answers from Epsilon. So we just kind of decided to, kind of leave the nest and spread our wings, sort of thing. Word got out, and we got literally a ton of offers from organizations all over asking for us to play for them. And we ended up settling with G2.
Is that because of your history within TF2? Were they aware of the context of your players and history and what you'd been able to achieve?
It was actually from like I got in contact with G2 through the contacts that I'd built up through my League of Legends. Right. So obviously I'd played at quite a high level in League, like not at the very top, not like in the highest professional level, but I'd played at a high amateur level. And professional in Turkey, that's relevant. But yeah, I gained quite a lot of contacts through that way. And I got talking with a friend who had recommended us to G2. And I got talking with the CGO of G2, which is Lothar. And yeah, obviously he then by that point knew about our history. Because obviously the person that recommended us mentioned how we were, like the best TF2 team. And that was kind of what piqued their interest. But that's not how initial contact was set up, no.
Mm-hmm. But the orgs themselves were interested in it. They thought that TF2, being good at TF2 was a sign of, potential success in Overwatch.
Yeah, I think so.
And that comes into my next question, because a lot of people have described Overwatch as being similar to TF2. How many similarities, do you see between the two games? In which ways do they differ fundamentally?
I really don't think there's that many similarities. Like, it's similar in the sense that it's a class-based FPS, but I mean that's as far as it goes. Like, it's a completely different ballgame. I can't think of a game like it's so far from similar. It was silly to even think that. I mean, well, okay, it wasn't silly to think of, but it's silly to think it now. Like, obviously back then we didn't really have any information to base that off, and we saw class-based shooting. We're like, oh, TF2. But having played the game, having watched the game, it's something else.
So then, was your decision to enter into G2, into Overwatch, with a roster that was so individually talented at TF2, Did that turn out to be a bad idea? You started off with Tech and Flippy and Shocky. What happened
Yeah.
to those guys? Where are they now?
I think like in an ideal world would still be playing with them, but obviously people sometimes don't have the time to commit. They don't pick the game up as quickly as you'd like, which was the issue. Like we want to be relevant throughout Overwatch, and I feel like we struggled at the start because half the team either weren't there or just weren't picking the game up, which is unfortunate. Like I think Tech is actually really pissed about it because he's removed me off everything. Um, but Stefan, I'd like to think I'm still really close with. Like I didn't want to cause any offense to anyone through getting rid of them from the roster because it's nothing personal. It's just that they weren't picking it up as quickly as I'd liked people to, and so we needed to move on as a team, and that was the best and quickest way to do it.
Is this your decision making? Are you now the leader of the Overwatch team? Are you making these kind of decisions?
Yeah, I'm the captain.
And you're still currently missing a player as well, as far as I know. But I hear rumours that there's Flippy and Forsaken were giving me little hints that there's something going on. Some other roster changes.
Well, yeah, we've actually just gotten rid of Forsaken and Shadowburn as well. So we're now just down to, again, me, Nox, and Mike. We have another 3 in mind that we're going to be playing with next week. But yeah, we've now even changed our roster for a third time because there was too many issues with Forsaken, Shadowburn, and Nox. Like one being the communication issues, like they didn't communicate as much as we'd need in an Overwatch team. Like they're both really skilled individually, but communication was a problem. And then the third is that Nox and Forsaken just didn't get along. And push comes to shove, like I'm gonna side with Nox the majority of the time because I think he's probably like I think he just understands Overwatch better than most. Like he's a really level-headed leader. But another thing with Forsaken actually is that he likes to flame teammates behind their backs. Like he'll whisper one teammate to flame another, but then he'll do the same with another, and like that's really not good for the team atmosphere. It just kind of got the whole team to a kind of boiling point where people getting angry at each other because of that sort of thing.
So now that you're only left with the 3 core from the original Epsilon,
yeah,
you said that you have another 3 in mind. Are they then Overwatch people that you met through Overwatch, or are you thinking of bringing in more TF2 players?
One of them is a TF2 player, but the other 2 are people that I know only from Overwatch. I don't know them from previously.
Right. Okay. And do you think it was perhaps the context for this question is that some people, when they saw the G2 team, they were looking at it. They were saying, "You got some very DM heavy people there." Some of who overlap with each other, like Mike, Tech, and Shadowburn, for example. They're all, excellent at projectile aim and very strong mechanical skill. And you're putting that into a game that doesn't reward mechanical skill as much and is more about, cohesion, maybe kind of like a MOBA-esque way of thinking about interactions. Yeah. Do you think perhaps it was a little naive, not understandably naive, but to bring in those really individually skilled players in TF2, or was it just unlucky that they didn't quite match up in Overwatch?
I think it was mostly just unlucky that they didn't match up in Overwatch, because obviously some were still young players that kind of had that ego thing about them still, where they still wanted to kind of have a spotlight role on the team, where they wanted to be the damage dealers and kind of be the carry. And some people struggle to take a backseat, like. I know a player like Shadowburn. I imagine he wouldn't want to play anything other than, that carry role. Or I know Forsaken initially did struggle with that as well. Like it wasn't until his new team now that he's taken on a healing role. But before then, he'd have been much happier playing damage roles. But I think that could be said for a lot of people. Like they'd be happier playing the damage roles. Whereas players like myself and Nox, like for the first phase of the beta, I played Mercy because that's what the team needed, and now I'm playing Reinhardt tank because that's what the team needs. Same with Nox. Like we want people that play for the team, not for themselves.
Interestingly, I don't know whether you read it, but TF2's Bloodsire just recently wrote an article about Overwatch, saying that one of the problems with the game, and he doesn't think it's a current problem as far as I know, but he's thinking about possibly the future of the game, He says one of the problems may be that 4 out of 6 of the players are playing like tank classes or support classes that really aren't the carry that a lot of people enjoy playing. Do you think that's going to be an issue for the game, or is it just an issue for these people who have like a little bit of an ego? If the two overlap, can Overwatch get through this and make it really enjoyable to play tanks and supports?
Mm, I I th- I think so. Like I'm enjoying playing tanks at the moment, but I think what annoys people is when you'll go onto streams and stuff and you'll hear like when you're talking about someone carrying a team, it's only really the chatter is only ever really about the people on the DPS roles. I think that can get to some people. And yeah, I agree with Blitzer that it could actually affect the game down the line. Then that it's hard for the spotlight to be shared. Because I mean, even looking at the player game system in the game at the moment, that's very DPS centric, and it's hard to get the spotlight if you're playing anything other than someone that does a lot of damage.
Absolutely.
And I think that's just going to kind of bleed out into the rest of the game, and could potentially have a negative effect on the player base.
Okay, numlocked, you're probably the best person I can think of to answer this next question. Many people have described Overwatch as a blend between an FPS game and a MOBA. Now you've got really top level experience in, well, maybe not right at the top in a MOBA, but it's reasonable at the very least with a MOBA and an FPS. How true do you actually think this is? That it's more like a first-person MOBA than a first-person shooter, or it's got MOBA-esque elements? How much has it blended them?
I think it's done a really good job, actually. I think it takes a good amount of the aim element from FPS games, but also the cohesion element from MOBA games. Like, it's really hard to win team fights. Well, in the first phase of beta, at least, it's the game was really ultimate reliant, and it's really important that you have good communication with your team and you're able to set up those sort of key team fights at certain areas of the map where you'll use ultimates and wipe a team and then move forward. So I think it's done a really good job of that. But right now, I think the balance is even better because the game isn't as ultimate reliant. Like you can switch classes. It's more about countering classes at the moment, which I think is another fairly interesting aspect that's taken from MOBAs. In that obviously you'll pick a champion into another champion because that's a good counter. Like it's the same with Overwatch right now. One will counter the other. So I think honestly at the moment I think it's got the best of both worlds. I think the game is healthy in that state of design, in regards to that kind of design. Yeah, I think it's in a good place at the moment.
Okay. What's changed from what you like about video games? When we were talking about TF2 at the beginning, how you got into it, why you liked it, you said you watched a commentated match, or you just watched a match. I can't even remember what you said about it, but you said you watched Haunter and Coins. Was it Haunter and Coins? I can't even remember that. Whatever.
No, it's Coins and Evil.
Coins and Evil, that's the one. So you watch Coins and Evil. They're fragging things, great mechanical skill, air shots all over the place, and that's what really drew you to the game. But with Overwatch, it doesn't really have that same kind of appeal. The mechanical skill isn't there for you to watch it and go, that's incredible. I want to be there. I want to be carrying in that aspect. I want to be hitting these flashy shots and bringing my team through these situations. What has changed about you as a player where you value that less and the perhaps depth or teamwork of the game more?
I think I've just matured as a person, and I don't really care too much about being the center of attention of a team sort of thing. Like I'm happy if the team's doing well. I don't care if I do well or not. Like, and I think that's shown throughout my history of TF2 as well. Like I've cared less about my performance. Like I could I can do less damage than, like, there would be a time where if I did less damage than Mike, I'd hate myself for it. But towards the end of my career, if Mike did more damage, like, holy shit, Mike is so good, sort of thing. Like, I'd big him up more so than I'd care about my own performance.
Let's talk a little bit about the practice attitudes and regimes within the different games that you've played, because I have a feeling it's vastly different. So you talked about TF2, and the normal is to play 2 hours a night, really. You play 4 maps, or at least that's the norm in Europe. In America, they play it slightly differently, but it's roughly the same. And you said that in your team, in the first one, Vale, where you guys were really keen and motivated and driven, you played a lot. You were playing, far more than anybody else, most nights a week, etc. Then when you go into League of Legends, it sounds like you have a ridiculously intense practice regime. And I know from talking to you when you were playing it just online that you were playing it way more than you had been scrimming TF2 or whatever at the time. What's it like looking at these three different scenes, so League of Legends, TF2, and Overwatch, and how people are approaching competition and practice in those three games, and what it does for the scene.
I think the biggest difference, first of all, is that there's not really a professional scene in Team Infused. Like, yeah, okay, you might be the best in the game, but it leads nowhere. Whereas in a game like League of Legends, it is a career. Like, if you're committing that much time to League of Legends, it is your career, and you're earning money and you're doing work hours basically. And there's that many people that play. It's also the fact that the games are just bigger. Like, you look at a game like League of Legends, if you're not playing that much, then someone else will, and someone else will want your spot more than you. And I think people are starting off with that mentality in Overwatch too. Like, teams in Overwatch are scrimming a lot, like from 3 o'clock in the day through to 1 a.m. at night or whatever, just trying to play against both European teams and American teams, just get a good mixture and the best understanding possible. And I think that is the best way to go about it, playing as much as possible and against as many as possible. Unfortunately for us, like, we can only play 3 hours a night because, like, you're working 9 to 5. Like, me and Nox have jobs, Mike's at university. Like, fuck playing all our free time outside of those things. I want to play some AIDS games as well. I want to relax and just have fun. Not saying that competing and practicing Overwatch isn't fun, but it's not the same level of fun, sort of thing. I do think that's healthiest for the game as well, and that people are practicing all the time because skill level's only going to improve, and that's probably where the Overwatch scene is heading as well, and that it's going to become very professional centric, and Blizzard are going to pump money into it, and it's going to be at the next BlizzCon. It's going to be at the same level of professionalism. Maybe not professionalism, as the same level of like career possibility as League of Legends. Because, like, I mean, you see the same in Heroes of the Storm, and not necessarily StarCraft, but in Europe at least. But yeah, like, people will play that full time and make a living off that. And I think the same thing's going to end up happening with Overwatch, and it already happens with League, but that was never really a possibility in TF2. So people might play TF2 all day for fun, but there'd never be scrims all day every day, and that's partly due to it not being a professional option, but also partly due to there not being that many teams, like, especially at the top level. Like, there was, like, maybe okay, you could go onto IRC or something during the day and find a scrim of whatever level, but at the very highest level, like, there's no way Epsilon could scrim all day. Like, we'd maybe get one scrim a night if we're lucky.
Well, that was mostly because you guys were absolutely dire at scheduling and organisation.
Yeah,
every other top team manages 4 games a night, so I don't know how.
We were probably the worst team to scrim
absolutely.
Against. We'd either be late or we just wouldn't scrim that much during the week. So I think people, like, we were lucky that we were as good as we were, because so people wanted to scrim us. Like, if we weren't as good as we were, like, we would never scrim.
Yeah.
People just refused to play us.
Yeah, very possibly. So, do you think that this practice regime that you've talked about, the fact that you can only play 3 hours a week, is going to actually hurt G2 as an Overwatch team, stop you really reaching your potential, or at some point is there diminishing returns?
I think in the long run it's going to hurt us, yeah. Right now, as long as we're, like, I think it is true that it's not how much time you spend, it's how you use it, sort of thing. But I think in the long run it's going to hurt us, and there might come a time where I can't, unless I'm earning enough money from Overwatch that I can quit my job. I don't think unless that happens, I don't think there's a time where I might still be on the team. Eventually I might need to be replaced, just because I'm not improving as much as the rest or whatever. But I think as long as I keep with my current mindset and, like, the way I look at the game and the way I focus on improving, I think that's not a concern for now, at least. So with Nox, I think we're both smart enough players that we understand the game, we understand how to improve and what to improve. So it's not too much of a concern at the moment, but yeah, potentially.
What do you think are the best points? So this is a question that's based on one from Riot BZ, who sent it in, who tweeted me. One of your,
I thought you meant like
many
a
fans.
Rioter then.
No, just some guy from Australia.
Right.
Or possibly New Zealand, I don't know, I can't tell the flags apart, they're very similar. But he says, TF2, League of Legends, Overwatch, which is the best esport? Now, I don't want to go down that one, I think that's pretty boring, but what I do want to... Hello, I've just turned on sticky keys. No, stop. I hate sticky keys, they're useless. Okay, instead of saying which is the best esport,
yeah,
what do you think is the best about each esport?
Jesus Christ.
What do you value the most from both a playing and spectating point of view from TF2,
Okay.
League of Legends, and Overwatch?
So I think TF2 is by far the best one. Like, in terms of I know you said not to go down the route, but I'm going
All
down
right,
the
no,
route.
no, that's fine.
But
I wanted a
I
good
think
one for TF2 anyway, so there we go.
I think TF2 is just the most fun to watch and play. Like League of Legends is fun to watch, but I think there's the downtime in League of Legends isn't the same as Counter Strike. Like the downtime in Counter Strike doesn't kill the game, whereas the downtime in League of Legends kills it because you have 40-minute games and there's like 5 minutes at a time where teams aren't doing anything and they're just dancing over a little area and there's nothing happening at all.
Yeah.
Whereas in Counter Strike, it's there's still like people are trying to take opportunities throughout that minute and a half or whatever it is. And people are trying to create things, whereas that doesn't happen at all in League. And then obviously in TF2, it's constant, and that's what people want to watch. It's actually fun. Yeah, I just think TF2 has the most enjoyment factor out of all three of those. Right now, I think Overwatch is possibly the worst. I don't think you can possibly sit down and watch an entire event of Overwatch. I don't think you could sit down and make sense. Yeah, I don't think you could make sense of an event in Overwatch. Like you'd be lost throughout the entirety of each of the games. And I'm not even sure it's fun to watch, to be honest. Like because it's so hard to tell what's going on. Like if you can't really follow the game, are you enjoying it? Because I think that's possibly a reason why it's struggling with viewership at the moment, is because if you're not playing the game, you don't really understand what's going on. So it's hard to follow a full match, regardless of how long it might be. But I think as long as the spectatability of the game is worked on, I think Overwatch has the biggest potential because it's similar to Counter Strike in that rounds can be quick. I think this is completely not true for Payload. I think Payload is the worst possible mode ever, and it should be abolished. But every other mode I think is they're fast and fun, and that's really what viewers want.
So this is really interesting actually. I didn't realize you held this opinion, but it's actually quite an unpopular one within Overwatch. I think most people really are pushing for Payload to be like kind of the dominant format, and they seem to be picking it in a lot of the map picks and situations. And it's like, strangely to me, it is one of the most popular game modes. They don't really play the set AD or the King of the Hill. Why do you? I think I know the reasons, but for people watching, why do you prefer the other ones? What's wrong about Payload in your opinion?
It's just slow and boring. Like I mentioned earlier with TF2, no one wants to see slow paced action, slow paced play. Like there's no enjoyment to play it. There's no enjoyment to watching it. Because like the majority of Payload can literally be spent watching someone pushing a cart, sat on the cart. Even as a player, like especially as a tank player, the majority of my playtime on a Payload map is spent sitting on the cart, making sure it pushes forward.
You could be AFK making a sandwich.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I feel like I don't matter as a player on a Payload map that much. Whereas on a King of the Hill map, like everyone, I think it plays an equal part in that. And there's a lot more versatility on a King of the Hill map, because that it's the symmetrical map ties in with having to counter classes, because it's not so much the map element it's not so much the map that creates elements of what counters a certain hero. It's just the heroes. Whereas on a Payload map, like you'll need a certain hero to get through this area. And that doesn't happen so much in King of the Hill.
Why do you think it's an unpopular opinion within Overwatch? Why have people gone for Payload so much when it's not in any of the respawn, really?
Well, I think that's part of the problem. None of those other resports have experienced Payload. Whereas coming from TF2, we know what it is and we hate what it is. There's a reason that Payload didn't take off in TF2, because it just isn't fun. There's the same reason that the faster gameplay did end up taking over for a period than the slower gameplay, because it's not fun to watch or play.
Let's bring it back to TF2 just for some interesting questions to finish this off, because we have been going for quite a while. In your opinion, is I49 Epsilon the best team ever?
Yeah, I think so.
What makes it the best team ever?
The individual talent of the roster. I think everyone was at their peak during that period, and I think no one has as dominant calling style as Epsilon did. Like, we controlled fights and set up the fights perfectly, I think.
I assume you followed Froyo Tech. You were there, you saw I52 and Mike crying like a little girl after his loss in the final. And then they won at I55 as well, which I know that you were there and spoke to you, give you a little interview.
Is that your on the head interview thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the head, on the point, and on the head. But that one was literally a camera on my head. So anyway, back to the question. You thoroughly thrown me off track. How do you think you stack up against Froyotech? Do you wish that you'd been able to battle what was, without a doubt, the other most dominant team in TF2?
Yeah, like that's like if I could just skip every other part of TF2 and just play against Froyotech and not have to play for the year to practice, then yeah, that'd be great. Like I think that'd be the most exciting game I might have ever played. Playing at someone that's equally as strong as the I-49 of that I-49 Epsilon. Shame it would never happen.
If the in-between part, if the bit between the I series became as interesting, say if there was like another international LAN thrown in, or there was big European competition as well, would you be drawn back to TF2, or do you feel like as a game you've completed it and it's in its box and you put it in the corner?
Like part of me wants to say that I would come back, and that if there was enough within TF2 throughout the rest of the year that I would still be happy playing. Like if there was enough competition in terms of both teams and tournaments. But yeah, I think it is on its shelf kind of for me. I've done everything I've wanted to in TF2, and I've had a lot of fun doing it. But that's it.
Very good. Well, numlocked, thank you very much for talking to me. Have you got any shout-outs before we close this up? This is a long-ass episode.
Yeah, Jesus.
Talked to you about 3 esports though, to be fair, so
yeah.
You know, I got my money's worth out of you.
Shout out to my friends, Circle Jerk. Just to play Circle Jerk, as everyone knows them. Shout out to my girlfriend, and shout out to the Overwatch team.
You got a girlfriend? I didn't realise you were in a relationship.
It's actually weird. I started speaking to her when I was in Turkey.
Is she Turkish?
No, she's not Turkish.
Ah, right.
I couldn't have done that.
Why is that interesting? Sorry,
I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's not interesting. I just happened to meet her in Turkey. It's not interesting.
You met her in Turkey?
No, I started talking to her in Turkey.
Oh, but it was online?
Yeah, it was
online.
online.
So it doesn't matter where in the world it was?
No, it happened while in Turkey.
That's very interesting. let's
edit the interesting bit out. I met a girl while in Turkey. Leave it as that.
Let's end on that bombshell. Thank you very much for talking to me. If you want to check out my previous interview, that is on the channel. I'm not going to post a link to it here on on the screen, but you can click on Sin's channel and you can go and have a look. That is with Clockwork, and my next guest is as yet undecided. Who do you think I should do, Seba?
I think Admirable or Lang would be a good shout.
That is a very good shout. Is that by any chance what I said to you right before this interview?
I don't think so. I think you just said that you didn't have an idea of who you were going to interview yet. I think that's entirely my idea. You've
twisted my arm. Well, perhaps I'll have to. But if you've got any ideas as well, then feel free to post them in the comments. And numlocked, where can we find more of your content?
You can follow me on Twitter at G2numlocked, or Facebook, which is /numlocked with a 1 instead of an L.
Check this guy out. He's got a Facebook page. See you guys later.
Don't follow me on Facebook, just Twitter.